Yo, what's going on, guys? Chris Bourne here, Overtime Athletes. A long-awaited video about soccer performance training. I know a lot of you guys have been asking in the comments. So, it's not that I essentially was avoiding it. It's just more or less I wanted to be able to work with a series of athletes, make sure we could develop results before I go ahead and start discussing it and actually giving you actual experience versus just hypothetical, I read it in a textbook, this is how you should be training. So real quick, a lot of these are gonna be generalities, and I'm speaking meaning in general terms for most soccer athletes, but it is on an individual basis, right? But let's get right into it. Now, to talk about an overview of how you should be training as a soccer athlete, we first need to establish the difference between skill and strength training, right? And your actual elevating your physicality. I think soccer players try to blend this too much and they never get the benefits truly of the physical training or the skill training because they don't separate them, right? So what I mean by that is most soccer athletes think that they bring a ball out to the field and they're getting their agility working. Yes, when you play the game, you increase your agility, but if we actually isolate and elevate those physical key factors, we can actually then translate that in your actual more powerful, faster athlete by separating them and training them exclusively. So you have to know the difference between your skill training and your actual physical, preparedness, being able to develop that. And those strength training that I'm referring to, there's a couple key factors that we want to elevate when it comes to a soccer athlete. Number one is going to be your linear speed. We want to address acceleration. That's your all-out quick burst from a dead stop or a slow jog. And we want to address your maximum velocity. That's when you're up into your maximum velocity. That's your ability to be able to essentially run at top speeds, right? So acceleration you can think of as for the first 10, 15 yards, whereas maximum velocity is what you're building up to. So when it comes to acceleration, there's mechanics involved, but more or less it's more of that first step quickness. Whereas maximum velocity, we want to really address mechanics and our ability to run at top speeds. Next, the key factor we want to elevate is your multi-directional speed. Now, this can be your quick change of direction, agility, but it can also be your curvy linear speed because most times on a soccer field, you're not running in angular, motions, you're running in curves. So we actually want to break those movements down and train them, whether that be through the ankle, the hip, through our trunk to be able to transfer energy efficiently. All things associated with elevating the athlete's agility, change of direction, and curvy linear running. Next is going to be our power. We actually want to have a heavy dose of plyometrics and jump training because we want to increase our vertical, our horizontal, and our lateral power, right? Vertical is going to directly translate over to your maximum velocity sprinting, right? So if we increase our vertical jump, you're going to see more power output in your maximum velocity, which is going to make you faster, right? Anything over 20 yards, 20 yards. In addition to that, obviously as a soccer athlete, you go up for headers, you contest for the ball. Having vertical power is going to be part of your game. Horizontal is going to increase your kicking power, right? Our ability to decelerate, moving in one direction. That's all developed through plyometrics and through horizontal jump training or plyometrics. And then our lateral, it's our ability to be able to change directions a lot faster. It also is going to be able to elevate your game when you're being contested with the ball. And then finally, I have strength here, and that includes, your maximum absolute strength, your relative strength, your supplemental strength exercises, your integrated strength exercises, and your overall trunk supplementary movements. All of these exercises and all of this that we're trying to elevate is going to obviously elevate your speed and your power. So I think one thing that a lot of soccer athletes lack is the ability to increase their absolute strength. They're more or less on the field a lot more. They weigh it out on that side a lot more than in the weight room. And I see great results when they're able to start to actually lift. Now, that's not to say most soccer athletes don't. It's just saying that they tend to side on the side of skills a little bit more. And if you're an athlete with great skills, but you're slow or you don't have the best agility, you can't keep up as far as endurance, which we'll get into, then obviously you want to spend a little bit more time in the off season in the weight room, in performance training, things of that nature. And then the last thing I want to address is anaerobic efficiency versus aerobic endurance. And really this is when it comes down to the soccer athletes conditioning, right? And the separation between the two, because you have to train both modalities differently, right? So anaerobic efficiency is your ability to produce force early in the game and late in the game and not have that much of a drop off in your force, right? So it's our ability to be able to essentially, like if I was shooting or being able to run, you know, that speed, that drop off isn't that much in the later parts of the game. Then the other one is your aerobic endurance, which is your overall work capacity, right? Our total amount of work that we can produce. You know, a guy that can run for days and can constantly go, he might not be the fastest, but if he's going the same rate later in the game, that's his overall aerobic endurance, not necessarily anaerobic, is because it's more about force for anaerobic. And aerobic is he can contest more balls because he's not tired, right? So you just got to know the difference between the two. From my take, what I understand, and from most of the guys that I work with, even though it's on an individual basis, most of the guys get enough sufficient conditioning as far as aerobic endurance in their actual practice or with their actual team. And what we want to address, or what I usually address as a performance coach, is more of their anaerobic efficiency, their ability to produce power late in the game. So that might be, you know, having different modalities in your training, things like finishers, like, you know, jumping at a high level later on in your training session. Whereas they address most of the running and the actual aerobic endurance in their actual practice. So knowing which one you want to side on for your actual your training sessions for in the weight room. So there it is. I just wanted to give a broad spectrum overview of what we're trying to do and accomplish. I'm going to break these down a little bit deeper, but I had to go ahead and address and kind of just give insight and just kind of spit off the mind of what I see. And when you kind of tend to focus on that speed, power, strength a little bit more in my realm, what I notice is I'm putting turbo boosters, rocket, you know, boosters onto a guy with great skill or great ball skills. And then he goes and plays and it translates. He's faster, he's more powerful, his shooting is way more powerful. He's got a faster first step, because now he's able to contest those things. And not only that, later in the game, he feels a lot more refreshed to be able to continue to go and put out that same power output. So that's kind of the overview. Like I said, I hope that helps, and I'll see you guys in the next video.